Years later, I realized that stalker caller was my male friend, now ex-friend. Honestly, this is going to sound like a terrible movie. Listen, I was naive. Despite my abusive childhood, I was still too trusting. Looking back now, I'm like, duh, of course it was that age. In the end, I'm just so grateful I wasn't hurt, physically. I, 37F, was 18 living on my own in a studio apartment on the first floor of a very shady apartment complex. I have at least 4 creepy, let's not meet stories from just being a resident there for only 6 months. They all would 100% qualify for this sub. This story isn't one of those 4 stories. However, the fact I was an 18-year-old female living on the first floor is important to know. Let me start at the end. I was at a downtown street party with my sister. As we waded through the crowd, I saw Peter, not real name Ob, amongst the other partygoers. I hadn't seen or spoken to him for a few years. The second I saw him, that night, the creepy calls and the voice came flooding back to me. That's when I realized that creep that called me that night was him. Peter was 21 at the time I was 18, and I were co-workers at a restaurant that we would have the same shift a couple times a week. We were just starting to get to know each other. One night, we were talking on the phone. It was storming. I joked that weird stuff always happens on nights like this. I didn't think too much of it. We hung up around 10 p.m. Not 10 minutes later, I get a call from a private number. I answer it. The caller said in a raspy male voice, "I'm watching you." I hung up immediately. They called again. I didn't answer, but they kept on calling. I finally answered to tell them to leave me alone. They then said, "I'm watching you though your window." I yelled at them to leave me alone, and hung up. I turned off my lights, checked the door lock, and huddled into a corner out of sight of the window. They kept calling, then stopped. I called Peter scared out of my mind, but he didn't pick up. I figured he'd still be up, that's why I called him. I called a few more times. He finally called back some 30 minutes later. He fed me this story, how his mom went to the emergency room for a heart condition. I frantically told him about the creepy caller. He was adamant about coming to my apartment to stay the night, even though his mom was in the hospital. He did spend the night on the couch. The next morning, he drove me to school. No discussion about what happened the night before, nothing. As time passed, I realized I didn't have romantic feelings for him at all. He did. Needless to say, we had a falling out. Then went our separate ways. That night haunted me for years. Among other things, mostly I was paranoid about having open curtains. I was relieved when I moved from that apartment complex to a second-floor apartment. But that night poisoned my mind. When I saw Peter at that party, after my matured brain finally made the connection, I wanted to confront him. But all I could do is leave and never see his awful face or hear his voice again. I really hope he didn't prey on other women the way he did with me. I'd like to mention that I don't recall, but I could have told him about the weird maintenance guy for the complex and how I suspected he entered my apartment when I was gone. Or I may have told him about a male stalker when I was 16, whom I never found out their identity. So, he could have used this as fuel to try to frighten me into his, Peter's, arms. Well, Peter, thank God your plan didn't work. Let's never ever meet again. Creepy 4 a.m. caller. So I work at a 24-hour contact center on the shift team. Most of the call center works 9 to 5 hours, but there is a small team of us here for the after hours. The nature of the call center is that people call for interpreters, and we set up the conference. At night, most of the calls we get are from emergency services, but it could really be about anything. We never know what's waiting on the other line, and us shifties have to deal with a lot of strange stuff. But nothing has made my skin crawl more than this one caller that started calling about a month ago. We get the occasional prank call or even a lewd caller, so I can't really pin down the exact time this guy started calling. About a month ago, I got a call that went like this, and I kind of suspect it might have been him, but I'm not 100% sure, so let's just say even if it wasn't, I don't really want to meet this person either. Me. Welcome to company name. This is Belle. How can I help? Silence. Me. Hello? Is anyone on this line? Silence. Me. Hello? What language? Mand. Poo-poo. Me. Thinking I hadn't heard correctly. Sorry? Was that Pashto? Mand. No. Me. Where is the language from? Mand. Spain. Me. No, I'm pretty sure they speak Spanish in Spain. Man, I'm gonna put my D asterisk 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 between your TDS and see him in your face. He breathed heavy down the phone. Me. Shocked and laughing hangs up phone. And that was that, the first of its kind that have haunted our shift team for the last month. Another girl on the team hung up a call quite panicked about 2 weeks ago. I heard a lot of the call just on her end, but she was calmly explaining the way our service worked to someone, just saying that we accept calls from non-English speakers as well as agencies, and we can put the callers through to a lot of companies as long as they accept our calls and are our clients. And then she just stopped talking and said, "Guys, this guy just got really crazy on the phone. I'm really shaken up." She didn't want to repeat what he had said, but after I told her about my call with the last dude, she said it was pretty similar to that. The next one I wasn't there for, so I don't have the best details of exactly what was said or anything, but I was given the rundown of a girl I work with, so I'll try my best to explain this one because this is where it starts getting really freaky. So this girl and my team stayed back to hang out with the reliving shift. We were on the evening shift, and they were on the graveyard. She said at around 3 a.m. this guy started calling and asking for Vietnamese. They would get the interpreter, and then a woman would come on the line speaking Spanish, so they would disconnect the call with him. He kept calling, so they started to ignore his request for an interpreter. Then things started getting strange. He started saying some rude stuff, and then they would hear the keys of his phone being pressed. Now I had brought this up with our team leader, and she told us to trace his calls if we could. Yes, we have call trace, which is pretty cool, but side note, so they kept him on the line and started to trace the calls. But then they realized he was transferring the call or conferencing in another call or something. The phone started ringing like the sound when you call out to someone, and then someone answered on the other line, "Hello 911, what's your emergency?" The really strange thing about this is that we are not in the USA, not even close to the USA. It's kind of hard to make conference calls if you don't know how. It's also kind of hard to find an international number for 911. Normally, if you dial 911, it redirects you the country you are in's emergency services. So we have no idea how he was doing it. But the guy was kind of putting on a voice, so it's hard to tell if he is American. Although a detail that happens later makes me think he is American, he never stayed on the line to finish the call trace. So the girls at work ended up saying sorry and explaining the situation to the 911 operator. They were as freaked out about it as we were. But the conference didn't collapse. If the caller who made the conference hangs up, then the conference would collapse. So this guy just stayed on the line listening to these people from 2 different countries try and work out why they were speaking to each other. Other calls that night I've been told about was one where they heard a bomb countdown timer. They weren't sure if it was live or if it was recording, but it sounded like 10 seconds until detonation, and then started counting down. It never finished the countdown. The call just cut out before. He also called a police station in America and conferenced us into them, and then just hung on the line not saying anything. But I'm not sure on the details of that one, so I'll just leave it. A few days later, we started our night shift rotation. What I'm about to explain only happened 2 nights ago, so it's still pretty fresh in my brain. At about 4 a.m., the girl I work with, pretty calmly I might add, yells out, "Oh, it's this dickhead again," and then puts the phone on speaker, so we can all hear it. What I heard on the other line made my eyes water and my skin crawl. In the most horrible voice, deep and rusty, and almost like a whisper coming out of the speaker, was this horrible voice mixed with horrible words. "I'm going to kill you." Everyone froze. This was pretty creepy even for us. Then immediately, he transferred to another line. This time, he didn't stay quiet. An American man answered the phone, and let me just throw in there that he had a really awesome manner and accent. Their conversation went like this. "Man, hello. A creep. Hi, I'm just calling in relation to an Xbox you put up on Craigslist." "Man, oh yeah, it comes with 2 controllers and some games." They had a conversation about the Xbox for a few minutes until a creep, voice much deeper and much like voice he was using before. "I'm going to stick my D asterisk 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 up your A asterisk asterisk." "Man, excuse me, what did you just say?" A creep. "Oh yeah, I'm going to get my D asterisk 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 and rub it all over your face. Do you like that?" "Man, oh dear Lord, why you say that? That's nasty." "Oh no, child." And then the call cut out. I was next in line for a call, so my teammate warned me, and as soon as the last word left her lips, my phone rang. "Me. Company name. How can I help?" I didn't want to use my name. Creep. "Oh, hey, what's your name? I want you to help with something. What's your name?" "Me. My name is Mel. I use that because it's close to my own name, I guess, and people always mistake it anyway on the phone. Creep, can you F asterisk 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 me please? Come here and F asterisk 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 me. F asterisk 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 you. I'm gonna kill you. At this point, I put it on speaker. I was supposed to mute it, but I'm not sure if I did because I was trying to figure out how to call Trace and said, "How do you call Trace?" And then he hung up. And that's the most recent thing he's done. If he calls again, I'll make a video or something cause I want to show you guys his voice. It's so creepy. But also I left out which country I'm from because I'm not really supposed to put stuff online about where I work. They're pretty strict about it, and I've heard of people being fired. So I left out all details of the company name and country I'm from, although it's probably easy to work out. It's currently 2:14 a.m. and I am at work, so might be some grammar problems, and also I'm a little bad at it anyway. Any minute now he could call again, and my heart jumps every time the phone rings. So anyway, creepy 4 a.m. caller, let's not meet. Ever, ever, ever. The unknown caller who is watching me from outside my house. So this happened to me almost 7 years ago now. I should give some background info before getting into things. At the time this all happened, I was around 16 years old, and I had a friend I'll call Karen, who was dating a boy named John. At this point in time, Karen and John has been dating for maybe 6 months, and after going out with Karen and John on many occasions, they decided that they wanted to hook me up with John's friend. We'll call him Cameron. At this point in time, I had met Cameron in person once. He was nice, so I gave him my social media, and we had chatted a couple of times. It's important to note, he didn't have my number or know where I live. Now it's time for the story. Fast forward to one night, maybe a week or two after I met Cameron. I'm laying in bed. It's about 2 or 3 in the morning, and I get a call from an unknown number. Thinking, why the hell is an unknown number calling me at this time of night? I decide to answer it and see who it is. So I answer the phone and say hi, and a man responds saying hi back. Since I didn't recognize the voice on the other end, I ask the person who they are. Instead of giving me an answer to this question, the man on the line tells me to look outside my window. Thinking this is probably a prank call, I tell the man to EFF off and hang up the phone. Once I did this, the number calls back again, didn't answer it. The person then proceeds to call me another 4 times until I finally answer the phone, which again, I ask who the heck is calling. This time the person responds and tells me that one of my friends gave him my number and that I'm the guy he's been talking to. At this point, my stupid 16-year-old mind is trying to rationalize this, and the only person I can think of is Cameron. Before I can say anything to this person, he again tells me to look out my window, he outside, and I begin hearing noises outside my window. Now, I should mention that my room is right beside my parents' room, and being stupid, my first thought was that this fool was going to wake them up, and I'd never hear the end of it. Let me tell you, that thought soon turned into the last thing I would worry about that night. Anyway, at this point, I'm also starting to get creeped out. I'm thinking to myself, okay, if this is Cameron and Karen did give him my number, how the hell would he know where I live? So I reply to the man and say, Cameron? The man says yes and tells me to look out my window. I reply telling him to go home and hang up the phone again. Weirded out, I decide I'm going to get up and go into my basement and call Karen so that hopefully my parents don't hear me talking from my room. This is really important because to get into my basement, I have to pass a door that is partially made of glass. So I get downstairs and call Karen. She answers, clearly half asleep. I tell Karen about the unknown call, which I'm assuming is from Cameron, and how he is telling me to look out my window because he's outside, and on top of this, that I can hear someone out there. Karen, now clearly awake, tells me she has never given Cameron my number or address, and calls John quickly from her home phone to see if maybe he did. At this point, John answers and tells Karen that not only had he never given my information out, he is with Cameron. They tell me if someone's outside, I need to hang up and call the police immediately. So I hang the phone up, and before I can even go to dial for anyone, I get another call. Guess who? Unknown number. So I stupidly answer again, and before I get a word in, the man tells me that he knows I'm in my basement. He saw me walking by my back door. Now I'm clearly disturbed, as I did just walk by my back door to get downstairs, so I know someone is outside. Again, before I could say anything, the man tells me to come outside. So stupidly, I tell the person I'm calling the police and hang up the phone. Why I didn't call the police at this point, I really don't know. Probably because I was 16, stupid, and literally in panic mode. Not more than a minute later, I get another call, unknown number. I answer again. The man then tells me to come outside, or he's coming inside to get me. Clearly panicking at this point, I have this deep gut feeling that if I go outside, I'm never coming back. However, I do have to go by the door again to get back upstairs, and that was equally terrifying me. So I hang up the phone again and muster up the courage to run upstairs because the last place I wanted to be was in a part of my house no one else was in. I get more calls, unknown number, unknown number, unknown number. Again, my 16-year-old stupidity answers. This time the voice on the phone sounds shook and says to me that police stopped him outside my house and want to speak to me to make sure I know him. The phone then gets passed off to someone who identifies themselves by name with some title I no longer remember and asks if I know the man outside my address. He says my house number and street. I quickly tell the voice on the phone I don't have any idea who the person calling me is, and hang up the phone. Never got another call again. However, I did sit there all night holding a bat and had problems sleeping for months. I should also mention I didn't have never many friends at this point in my life. And looking back on this night, I thought maybe this was a prank taken too far. However, I begged the few friends I did have for months to admit that one of them were the person who pulled this off, and to this day they all insist none of them did this. So, whatever got this person to stop calling me, thank God, and to the unknown caller, let's not meet. No caller ID. I originally posted this in r/creepy encounters, but was directed to post it here instead. Please tell me if it doesn't belong. This encounter just happened to me about an hour ago. It really made me nervous, and I wanted to share. I was on FaceTime with my boyfriend, and we were chatting about how each of our day had gone, and I get a call, so I'm like, babe, I'm getting a phone call, let me call you back. The contact information for the call just said no caller ID, but I answered it anyway, and I said hello a few times before a voice that I didn't recognize answered and said, "Are you deaf? Are you deaf in one ear?" Which really freaked me out because I am, and that's a very specific thing that I don't really share with the world, only my close friends know. So I said, "Yes, why? Who are you?" And the caller replies, "Just wondering, love you." And then they just hung up. I called my boyfriend back, and it made him really nervous too, and neither of us had any idea of who it could be, but we're both really anxious about the whole thing. The whole thing just made me super uncomfortable and scared because I don't know how the person would know that about me or how they got my phone number. I'm really shaken up. Thanks for listening to my encounter. If I get another call, I'll make another post with the same title and make an update, but I honestly hope I don't have to. And creepy phone call person, let's not meet. Creepy hotel caller. I am a woman. Looking back on this story, I recognize everything I did wrong and am horrified, but it's a good warning. I am generally a very skeptical, aware person. Lock my car doors right after I get in, trust gut feelings, don't talk on my phone while walking, etc. I'm shocked by how off guard this caught me. Last week I was traveling to Phoenix on business and stayed in an Embassy Suites. Nice hotel, stayed there lots of times without problems. I have noticed it is pretty lightly staffed but no issues. At 6:45 in the morning, my hotel room phone rang. I answered, thinking it must be the front desk, and the person on the other end said, "Hi, is this Jenny?" I said yes, and I had the TV on in the background so couldn't hear him, so I said, "Hang on a second," and muted it. He then said, "Oh, I'm sorry, are you having a meeting? Am I interrupting?" Me? "Oh no, just the TV. Can I help you?" Let me just tell you, this guy was extremely suave, charming, and disarming. Suave but not in a slimy way, just totally friendly and nice. Long story short, he goes down this whole path of saying, "You aren't going to believe who this is. It's a blast from the past. Do you know who this is?" Super fun and playful like a friend would be if they were calling you out of the blue. I do a lot of work in Phoenix and have for many years, and I changed my cell phone number about a year ago. So while it would be incredibly odd for someone to call me at the hotel, I really was trying to rack my brain and figure out who might have heard I was in town and wanted to get in touch. Finally, I told him I didn't know who he was, and he'd have to tell me. "Okay, I'll tell you, but you have to guess a city first. Think of a time you met someone in another city, had a great time, and never saw them again. Someone you got a little crazy with." Just to get this moving, I guess Cleveland. I did go to Cleveland on business about 8 years ago, but I didn't do anything crazy there. Yep, Cleveland. Me. No, I still don't know who this is. Him. Think of a Cleveland Browns player you met and had a really good time with. At this point, I clearly know the call isn't for me, and I say definitively no, I don't think so. In response, he says, "Oh my goodness, do I have the wrong Jenny? Is this Jenny Miller?" Nope, wrong person. So he, in a very friendly and engaging way, tells me, "I called the front desk and they must have just been going down the room list and connected me to the wrong Jenny. Well, since I'll never meet you in person, I'll tell you, I met this girl in Cleveland about 2 years ago, and we were both married, but we just had an awesome time, and it was all about the sex. She drunk texted me 2 weeks ago and told me she was going to be in town, and I thought I'd call her and surprise her." I kind of chuckle and say, "Oh, interesting, well, good luck." He, again, charmingly, starts to flirt with me. I don't remember exactly how the conversation went, but it was moving quickly and was something along the lines of, "Sounds like you had a crazy time in Cleveland too. Since I'll never meet you in person." By the way, creepy that he repeated this twice stood out to me. "Let me ask you, are you as pretty as you sound?" Then he described himself and asked about me, which I very foolishly told him my age, city I'm from, and that I'm married. He then said, "Hey, tell me what happened for you in Cleveland." At that point, I finally wised up and said, "I'm not going to continue this conversation," at which point he promptly hung up. I had about 30 minutes until I needed to leave and felt very unsettled as I reflected on the call. How did he get patched through to my room without my full name, but knowing my first? Obviously, he somehow requested to be connected to my name and made up a story about not knowing the last name maybe. Did he possibly know my room number? Was he lurking waiting for me? I waited until I saw another woman go to the elevator and jumped out of my room behind her so I wouldn't be alone. At the front desk, I was telling the manager very briefly about it to try to get to the bottom of how the guy got through to my room, and another woman standing nearby said, "Did someone call your room looking for Sarah Miller?" I said, "No, he called looking for Jenny Miller. My name is Jenny." And then she said, "I had a guy call my room looking for Sarah Miller. My name is Sarah." I was asleep, and he just said really cheerfully, "Best wake-up call ever." But I was so disoriented I didn't keep talking to him. The manager, who was the only one working the desk, sort of acknowledged he had some calls come in, but sort of brushed it off and moved on to the next person. So I didn't get to the bottom of that, which, reflecting on it, I should have pushed much harder and may call and do so, but it was all moving very fast. Okay, so creepy as hell, right? Totally disarming personality. Disarmed me by doing it in the morning instead of the evening, knew my name, called a hotel phone, got me to acknowledge I was alone, made me pick a city and then made a tie to it, made himself sound like a cool football player, even though he clearly wasn't. All kinds of creepy stuff. Here's my question. What was this guy going for? I can only think of a couple options. Trying to get someone to talk dirty on the phone for some jollies. Least creepy of the options, but I feel like he didn't move it that way quickly enough and wasn't explicit enough to make that the goal. I really got the vibe he was trying to find someone that would be willing to meet him in person. I felt like if I'd continued the conversation, it was going towards, "Hey, I was trying to call Jenny Miller, but you sound really fun and cute. Would you want to meet for a drink?" Who knows what his buddy's intentions would be. Kidnapping seems over the top, but shit happens. Rape, just a lonely guy looking for a date. I Googled and found no similar stories. Maybe I Googled the wrong thing. I did find the front desk scam, where they pose as the front desk and try to get your credit card number, but nothing like this. I am generally no slouch when it comes to personal security, and it really freaks me out how easily I was put into friendly mode instead of skeptical mode here. My friends have been shocked when I told them this story, and said if anyone was going to fall for it, I'd be the last person they'd think would. Trying to figure out what this guy might have been after.